And 2 years later, in 2010, we have IP Man 2, a fantastic follow-up, a brilliant sequel that is almost on the same level, almost par, near perfect from the first movie. A brilliant continuation of the story, the themes, the characters, up in the ante, a slightly bigger budget, more action, bigger kind of stakes on the line in the sense in terms of the pride of kind of Hong Kong and the martial arts community in the sense, and really explores some really interesting aspects during the time of the grandmaster's life with his family and stuff. Just a brilliant all-round sequel, a really good follow-up that's almost on the same level as the first movie. And I said it before, I don't think the first movie was ever meant to have a franchise. I don't think it was meant to have sequels, but of course the nature of the business, if you do well, you make a good movie, people want more. The story of IP Man 2 follows a couple of years after the events of the first movie. Gives you a bit of a recap what happened with the Grandmaster, some of the side characters, the aftermath against facing off against the Japanese general. And the character's moved on, he wants a fresh start. He moves to Hong Kong, a new town, a new village, wants to open up a new academy to train new up-and-coming kind of students in a sense, and kind of teach on his skill sets and make that money and kind of support his family like anyone would. Obviously at the time this is a very heavily British corrupted Hong Kong, and if you know anything about history, if you know anything about Hong Kong movies in general, the 90s where kind of Hong Kong managed to get independence away from kind of the Western kind of influence from kind of British and a little bit of America as well, I'd say as well. And this is kind of explored in many movies as well, not just the kind of the IP Man movies, but also kind of Once Upon a Time in China and Police Story and many other kind of movies. If it isn't the Japanese being the villains in most kind of Hong Kong movies, it is definitely the British, and they're portrayed always very funny, very over the top, very typical kind of London British kind of accents, jolly good sir kind of thing, very nasty kind of folks. And to be honest, as someone who is from the UK and is British, I just find that really funny. And especially in this film, there's two very specific British people, British kind of sergeant, who's kind of very definitely taking over a lot of aspects of kind of pieces of pies, and definitely wants to rig the games in terms of fights, in terms of he wants his kind of bribe money every month kind of thing on the dot, big stacks of money. You've got a British kind of boxer in as well, which is very arrogant, very disrespectful, someone who is top of his game during that time and doesn't care about the kind of respectful nature of the kind of martial arts and the kind of the respect of the kind of Hong Kong kind of spirit in that sense, and willing to take on and willing to beat anyone who do dare faces him, who definitely thinks his boxing skills are definitely above anything else in terms of the martial arts kind of community, in terms of Wing Chun, in terms of the respectful kind of nature, in terms of fighting. Of course, he wants to open a new academy, he wants to open a new kind of like dojo in a sense, and teach new students, a new generation of people, the way of Wing Chun, good values, good kind of honorable, peaceful kind of fighting in a sense, and earn good respectful kind of students in a sense to pass on those kind of values that he holds so dear. And of course he is blocked by doing this and allowing to open a kind of academy and a dojo by a corrupted group of martial arts kind of masters led by Master Hong, which is played by Sammo Hong, which is our kind of secondary kind of main villain in the sense, which is explored very interesting in the film. I'll get to that later. Brilliant kind of secondary kind of villain character in this film. Fantastic. I love Sam Hong and anything, especially in this film as well. He is challenged quite a few times in the film, proving himself as a kung fu master, going up against multiple of the other masters in that kind of town, because they don't know much about him. They know a little bit of the IP Man, but they want to see what his skill sets are, what he can do, how he can prove himself, and this all leads to a kind of East versus West fight against a kind of boxer named Twister, which is this kind of very over-eccentric, very over-the-top kind of British boxer who thinks he is the best and he can take on any kind of martial arts, kind of kung fu kind of style master. You've got kind of conflicts going on between other various kind of characters, other supporting characters. You've got a continuation of the story between the Grandmaster and how he connects with the students, how he connects with his wife and his son and his family in a sense, and how this kind of all comes together to kind of make a really entertaining, really kick-ass, fun, really well done film that really continues on the legend and the kind of the spirit of the way of Wing Chun and the master and the community and the kind of the nature and the pride. Yeah, it's a fantastic sequel, a brilliant follow-up to the first movie, continuing on those kind of themes, those values, and standing up for the little man and not being corrupted and not being arrogant and not thinking you're better than anyone else. And this character is kind of thrown into a kind of new scenario, new kind of town where it's very heavily corruptible, very influenced by Pacific people, and you've got a lot of mini gangs, a lot of supporting characters that are trying to get food or trying to show that they're the best, of course, as it always is. You've got corrupted kind of masters that unfortunately have to play ball with the kind of the British kind of officers that want their kind of their share of the pie, in a sense. They want their kind of bribe money. And Sammo Hung's character in the film is really a good representation of the time itself, you know, whether it's fully accurate or not is one way or another, but it makes for an entertaining film. Sammo Hung in this film is absolutely fantastic. He's incredible. He's a really good, you know, adversary against Donnie Yen's kind of character. He really holds up his fights, really holds up in terms of the kind of the martial arts kind of kick-ass kind of fighting, in a sense. A bit of wire work, a little bit of places in there, but the fight scenes between them two are really fantastic. He's a great performer. And the good thing about it as well, Sammo Hung being kind of a budding star as well, he was the martial arts director in the first movie and in the second film. And you can tell that when I can see, every time I see Sammo Hung kind of name in terms of a stunt directed by Sammo Hung, I know what type of fight he's get. I know what he thinks is good. Because the excellent thing about having him in the film, whether he's kind of starring or whether he's just directing the action, you know he's got a keen eye, you know how he looks good on camera, you know he wants a certain type of flavour in terms of, you know, the villain and the hero, and escalation in terms of having a tenseful scene, a tenseful build-up, and all of his fights throughout all of his films, whether he's starring, directing, just kind of whatever he's doing, is always fantastic. And every time I see his name pop up, I always get a little bit excited because I know I'm in for a really well done, fun ride with a very established kind of Hong Kong kind of martial arts legend, in the sense like it's going to deliver some fantastic sequel. But what I really like about Sammo Hung's character in the film, he's kind of just like a kind of a pawn in himself, in a sense, compared to the British officers. He's someone who's doing what he needs to do to kind of survive in that kind of world and that kind of business, in a sense, and he's constantly disrespected. He's constantly kind of brought down to a level and almost treated like a dog, in a sense, compared to the kind of British officers and the kind of the boxer that comes into kind of the second act during the film. And there's a point where he's had enough himself. He's been disrespected, his students have been disrespected, himself, his country, his pride, and it gets too far. And obviously this kind of boxer called Twister, very over-eccentric Londoner kind of boxer, in a sense, is challenging the very ways of kind of the martial arts kind of community and those good values and there's the honor system, and he's just going in there saying, I'm number one, I'm top dog, come on, you know, my boxing skills, my hooks versus your kind of kung fu. Donnie Yen once again playing the grandmaster is absolutely fantastic, terrific. He plays him so well, such grace, and really continues on that good nature, the goodwill within the kind of what's happening in terms of the corruption of this kind of little small village, and really helps out and really kind of demonstrates and showcases his skill sets within 1, 2, 3, 10 people, doesn't matter. He will take you on and he will really demonstrate how good he is, and he will try and help people along the way. And that's the good thing about the character, and one thing I really like going to watch him as perform it, because he is a nice character and he's someone who wants to help and wants to do the right thing, and you know, he will demonstrate his skill sets, and if he feels threatened, he will take you on, he will beat you down, but he will always try and do the right thing. And I think that's a really honourable thing within that kind of corrupted natured world. But yeah, a couple of returning characters from the first movie that's really interestingly explored as well, and kind of seeing what they've been up to. I think his relationship with his wife and his son, I think is quite interesting. Again, it's the same. Once again, he's kind of like very similar. There's a bit of like neglect, there's a bit of like kind of frustration between that relationship, and you don't know where it's going to go in that sense. The actress who plays the wife, I think, is absolutely incredible. She does a really good job in kind of portraying the kind of the worry, the kind of the slight jealousy and the slight kind of nervousness of every time he goes out there and kind of takes on an adversary, takes on a character, like Twister or like a Sammo Hung, in a sense, and she just wants him to do a peaceful kind of training academy and kind of come home. And I think during that time, that's the best you kind of can ask for. You don't want to find out your husband's being beaten to death or being kind of humiliated in that sense. And she understands the kind of that value, and even she gets to a point where she's like, you know, kick his ass practically, go on. The fight itself between Donnie Yen and Twister as well towards the third act, I think is absolutely incredible. It's really well done. It's obviously a little bit of cheating going on. There's a little bit of restraint in terms of kind of the rules they're kind of betraying. You know, he has to do boxer rules where he can't do his kicks, he can't do certain things. So he has to kind of play the Western game in the sense of that boxing, but obviously he doesn't know how to do boxing. But obviously Twister, his character, he has got his meat right hooks, and he can throw those nasty punches, where obviously Donnie Yen is more about kind of quick kind of quick movement in a sense, and kind of, you know, jabs and that kind of thing. And, you know, he rises the occasion, really takes on the character. I won't say too much, but I like the fact that Donnie Yen's character, the Grandmaster, has to really adapt to the environment, and he has to be forced to be challenged yet again, like the first movie, and has to kind of figure out how to defeat his opponent under their rules, under their game, and to kind of reclaim this kind of spirit of Hong Kong once again. I think the way he goes about it in the film is absolutely terrific, and I really love the way he kind of thinks and how to defeat that opponent. Go and watch it for yourself. It's brilliant. It's a really fantastic sequence. But yet again, a brilliant fight, a really intense, really nasty kind of fight that really gets you on the edge, really gets you nervous, and really wants you to root for kind of the Grandmaster himself. And of course, as I expected they would do, they throw in a mini cameo from kind of Bruce Lee as a kid, which I thought was quite funny. And throughout the kind of, you know, 2 and 4 as well, they kind of keep bringing him back for various kind of cameos or extended cameos. Yeah, IP Man 2, brilliant sequel, really fantastic follow-up that does a really good job. Almost at the same level as the first movie, almost a masterclass level itself. Brilliant fighting, Sammo's brilliant, the storyline's great, the characters good, the continuation of exploring the characters many years later. Brilliant sequel. So 5 years later we have IP Man 3.